Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I want to welcome everyone. This is really part one to the program I had with discussion with the brothers and sisters out of the Detroit area. I failed to be able to record this part, so I want to share with the regular audience. And what we want to begin with is the story of Hastings Street, a part of the Detroit area.
Continue to grow, along with an increasing emphasis on Black pride and self-determination. The Hastings area residents witnessed the arrival of some new neighbors, the Black Muslims, who opened one of their first places of worship on Frederick Street, a few blocks down from Hastings. In spite of frequent harassment from police, the movement and one of its most prominent disciples continued to grow.
They weren't too much on the strip back then. Way back then, they weren't there. They came later years. In the, I would say, not that many late years, but in the late 40s. We had heard of Malcolm X, not to that great extent, but we knew of the Muslim movement. We knew of their movement because it came into the community and they had quite a few converts. And they would have had more, but it was so strong racially then that a lot of people shied away from it, particularly Blacks coming from the South, changing their tradition attitude about it. And of course, you know, that group started here in Detroit and they got their strength from it. But now, if I had to deal with it there, we see a lot of positive things from it. But back then, they were small in minority, very devoted, and I cannot say clannish, but they only accepted each other.
About Malcolm X, he used to come up to date my sister. Like I said before, it was a fun time house where my mother had because my sister played piano at the age of 4. And there were a lot of musicians that would hang around the house. And Malcolm X heard about these 5 girls up there, single, beautiful girls. And so he began to come up to see my sister Ruth, the one that played the piano. And they would eat dinner on Sunday up there. My mother would fix dinner for them. And it used to be the Romanian Hall. And they would give dances at the Romanian Hall. It used to be white. And then the Muslims came in with Malcolm X and took over the Romanian Hall. And they did have a shootout there when they first started opening the place. And the policemen at that time thought they were troublemakers, and they called them communists. And they shot 2 of the brothers right in front of the Romanian Hall. And shortly after then, they began to move out of that area.
Mohammed, after a ball game on the playground, I mean, he'd be a big crowd. He'd get up on a soapbox and go to talk to the big forward coming through a tear gas and break up the crowds. You know, I saw that when I was a kid.
In fact, I met Malcolm X in the 1951, I believe it was, and I had a chance to meet his brother since then. But I was very impressed with Malcolm X.
Well, when I heard about Malcolm X, actually, he used to come up to see my sister-in-law, Ruth Garden, lived 1448 Frederick Street. And they were just about 2 numbers down. And they had opened a hall there they called Shabazz number 2. And that's where the Muslims had their little meetings. Well, they wasn't so little, but that's where they had the meetings. And every once in a while, we'd be sitting up on the porch overlooking the street, and would be a little something would break out because they did not allow you to bring weapons into the services. And one day they had a little scuffle there with the police because the police, they didn't consider them as a legitimate religion, anything anyway, you know. And so they got in a little scuffle. I don't know whether one got shot or not, but I know there was a little pistol play there because the police came in as if they were looking for somebody. And as a matter of fact, they knew they were not supposed to have weapons on them, so they said, you can't come in here with weapons on you because this is a house of worship. And the police shoved on by them, everything. They had a little scuffle. I was looking down from my mother-in-law's place on Frederick.
That was the comments that they did just about the Hastings Street and on Frederick, the early Muslim that played there. This one I want to just record just a few comments. This is really, if you listen real good, this is Honorable Elijah Muhammad talking about the Shahada in the Muslim public. So here we go, right here.
Nous n'en sommes pas certains, mais il est possible qu'il ait été un Ahmadite. Je parle d'une personne qui a été membre du temple de la science mort. C'est Elijah Muhammad. Et il est devenu le leader de ce qu'il appelait The Nation of Islam.
Listen to this. Ce que nous disons, Allah est Dieu. Ce que nous disons en arabe, Allah est grand. Ce que nous disons en arabe, il n'y a de Dieu qu'Allah. Il n'y a de Dieu qu'Allah. Muhammad est le messager d'Allah. C'est ce que nous disons.
The Nation of Islam a été...
So we all heard that from ourselves. You know, that was Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, taking the Shahada. I'm not sure where this French TV got that interview from. That was an interview that they did with me a few months ago, a few years ago, pardon me. So what I want to do now is go into our PowerPoint about some of the research that I found with the Nation Islam in the history in the Detroit area. I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna be able to share. I'm sharing my screen. Bear with me. All right, we are here now. I'm sharing the screen. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Now, before I even start, I just want to give us some background. I've been doing a lot of little census work, a lot of census research. And here, these are some census of people that were born in Africa, living in the Detroit and Michigan area in 1850. There was at least 8 people from Africa. In 1860, there was 7 people in Africa. In 1870, there was 7 people that said they were. And in 1880, 138 people was living in Michigan in Africa. Now, this here is the first masjid built from the ground up. And it was built in Harperwood, Michigan, not far from the Ford plant, where a lot of the Muslim had worked there at. But they knocked this down in 1926. The unique thing about this is the diversity and the unity of the Muslims that helped establish it. Some Lebanese Muslims and as well as Shiites. And they allowed the Ahmadiyyan brother to come in and open it up and dedicated for prayer, Muhammad Siddiqui. Here is one of the early temples or the location where they met in the Detroit area. This here is a 1930 census record of a guy named Ali Muhammad coming from Arabia. And it looks like he was a host because you can see all the different Muslims that was living there. And it was not his family. They were just people with Islamic names that lived in there and worked in the Ford plant. You see Ali Salih, Khalil Hassan, Ali Hassan, Yusuf Suma, a whole bunch. And that was just one sheet. Now, these are some census records of in the 1930 of African-American Muslims, okay, in 1930 now. This is before or right at the arrival of Farah. So these are people that was really before then. Their name was Abdullah Bey Muhammad, Umar Muhammad, Aisha Muhammad. And you see their census records living in the Detroit area. Another, in the 1930s, there was at least a family of 4 people that had the last name Shabazz, saying they came from out of Turkey. You see that in the, registered in the census record there. Now, this here is a census record of Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father. This is William Poole. When they lived in the Detroit area, this is him in the 1920s census record. I'll let you know what street he lived on. Okay, and his wife Maria. And we said Sister Marie. You see the different family members at the time. James Poole, John, Herbert, Jesse. Here in the 1930 census, Elijah's father, William, Marie, and his other brothers, Elijah Muhammad's grandmother, Peggy. And then in the 1940 census, Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father was living with his brother, who was known as Herbert at the time, but I believe he's also John, which was Sister Bernstein. We know of her history and her heritage, and the grandmother, who was 100 years old at the time. This is a photograph of Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father and his mother. It's Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Sister Clara Muhammad, and Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his children at one of his the weddings of one of his older children. These are census records that we found of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is back in the 1900s when he was 3 years old, living in Georgia. You see his father, William, Marie, his sisters, his big brother, Billy, which we know later as William, Hattie, Lula, Elijah. Then you got Elder. This is his 1910 census where they documented Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then with his father, you see William Poole Jr. Now this is Willie as Jr. And I keep pointing out this Willie. This is the Willie that Master Muhammad, or Master Wali Muhammad is named after, in my summation. This is Honorable Elijah Muhammad's census records in the 1930s, him and his family, and they were still living in Detroit. This is, the street, that Leland Street that he lived on when he's in Detroit. And this is Sister Clara Muhammad, her census records when she was a child. This is Sister Clara at the age of 1 year old. And her father, this time they did say Coy, and her mother, Mary Lou, her brothers, and her sisters. And then this is 1810 census, and when she was 11 years old. And then you see her father named Quintus, Mary Lou, Carlton, and Marie, and some of her family members. Then this is her family census after she got married to Elijah Muhammad. This is 1920s, and her family. This is Sister Bernstein. She was the secretary treasurer for Farad Muhammad. She was very instrumental maintaining records, typing up that data, information. She was held in great honor, great esteem for the community. This is Kalak, Elijah Muhammad's brother. In the census record, they just said that, called him Lot. He was the captain under Farad Muhammad of the FOI. And you see Lot and his family, his wife Florence, and his son or Kelly or daughter Kelly. And they lived in Indiana at the time. Now, a lot of us hear the story about calling the Nation of Islam the voodoo cult and all of that. But this is the newspaper article about them. The brother's name was Robert Harris, and he had believed in doing a ritual sacrifice. And he was trying to sacrifice this brother, this guy. And so they arrested him and everything. And then he tried to blame it on the teaching or being a member of the organization. So you see in the newspaper, it was 500 people that went out to protest about Farad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad being arrested. Now, this here is the house that it happened at. They call it the Voodoo House. This is what they call it, the cult of Voodoos. And this is the story. Now, the unique thing about this is that it says DeBar Street. Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1928 lived on DeBar Street as well, but lived down the street. I think this house happened in the 1400 block, and he lived in the 3700 block. And we also saw that there's another record that Honorable Elijah Muhammad's father lived on DeBar Street as well, a little further down. Now, unique thing about when they got arrested, some of the names and the personalities. Of course, you see two other members of the society. Wallace Farad is a leader, and Ugan Ali, secretary, are being held. Now, in the FBI report, they say that that Farad was out of California and Portland is what lived there. But this Farad is clear. It says Farad was being held for immigration authorities. So clearly he was not a born American, Portland, Oregon, California, nowhere. They say he was an immigrant. Now, here they talk about fathers were detained and give you the streets and addresses where they was detained at. Now, what I see also unique about this, you see Abe Muhammad lived on Alpha Street, Oscar, this probably was Sharif, I say Sarif, then Cornelius Bay, and then there was a Wallace Muhammad. This Wallace Muhammad is not W.D. Muhammad. W.D. Muhammad was not even born then. This was a grown person. And then what they called it was the Order of Islam. The other things that they called it was also Allah's Temple of Islam. Now, this here is a photograph of them saying that they was FBI was interviewing Farad Muhammad when he got arrested. Here is a draft record of Wallace died Farad, which they may say Ford, but this one says he's coming from Afghanistan. Clearly not an immigrant, coming from Afghanistan. And this is what we did his draft records. Now, this is that time they all got arrested during that period in the 30s. You see it right here. Some of the photographs, some of the brothers being whipped on. There's a brother, John Hakeem Willis, out of Savannah, Georgia, owns these actual photographs now, and many more of them. Here they brothers asked to take the oath, understand, but here that you see them making a dua, not taking a stand on no Bible. Here's that FOI, the early FOI. This is a lot of those brothers that got arrested during that period, that time. And then a lot of sisters came out to support them. And there's a lot of collection from that period in that time, from the police, the newspapers. There's many collections around. And these are the sisters. Some of these sisters here in Detroit are Elijah Muhammad's sisters, nieces, and aunts as well. Many of them came early followers of his in the Detroit area, as well as these are some of your early Detroit pioneers, brothers and sisters. Here, this is Elijah Muhammad's big brother, Willie, which we became known as Wali. This is his 1920 census record, letting you know where he lived at. And this is when he was still living in Georgia. And this is his wife, Annie Poole, Essie Poole, MC Poole, and Walter Poole with some of his children. Now, this is him living in Detroit now in the 1930s, letting you know where he lived at, the street he lived on. His name was Willie Poole, Annie Poole, Essie Poole, McCanny, and Walter. This is in the 1930 census. Now we've been able to dig up, the information about Wally or Willie Poole, who was born in August 1891, who died early while Elijah Muhammad was in prison, January 20th, 1944. He was Willie's, William and Marie's oldest son. I said earlier, his daughters and his children. Now this is his death record. Willie Poole, male, 52. You see his father, William Poole, and Marie Poole, same mother and father as Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Here, his draft records. Okay, and this is what the Masjid Wali Muhammad is, the personality we believe is named after. Here you could trace his daughter. This is in 1935. You see the name Essie Muhammad. They had the name Muhammad. Her father, Willie Muhammad. She married a brother named Alex Hassan. This is in 1935. And this is Alex Hassan information. His father. Then his spouse, Essie Muhammad. So Essie Muhammad married Alex Hassan. So they became the Hassan family. Here you got where I'm some city records where Elijah Muhammad lived and when he was in Detroit. In 1927, he lived on Rockwood Avenue. In 1928, lived on that DeBar Street, 3734. In 1930, on Inland Avenue. And this is his Social Security information. Once again, his father, now you see next to his father's name is Wally as well, Wally Poole and Marie Poole. This is his 1940 census record, living on Washburn Avenue, which is in Chicago, not far from where the Ahmadians also had their headquarters. And here you see Elijah Muhammad with his name, and Muhammad said that on his birth certificate, his name was Mohammed. And you see this is how it's spelled in the census records. And all of them listed, from his mother to himself. His mother led with him. This is Manworthy Muhammad, Wallace D. Muhammad, his census record when he was 6 years old. So that first Wallace was not him. Now they spelled the name all kind of ways. You know, they say this is Akbar, but they spelled it totally wrong. Elijah Muhammad Marie. This is that Essie. Now she's in. This one says she's in Kansas. The Essie Muhammad, pardon me. Elijah Muhammad's children, and W.D. Muhammad with his mother. This is Naba Wali Muhammad on the 1940 census records. Willie Muhammad, but he was saying they saying he was single. He wasn't married. Calendar Muhammad. Willie Muhammad. This is that Wali Muhammad. Here in 1940s. Now that you think, you know, we said we was Asiatic black. The Morris Science Temple said it. Even some early Professor Ezzadeen community, but they were more in the New Jersey area. But here you got in the 1940s, you got Adela Sharif saying she's Arabic and Arab, Asiatic, born in Maryland, saying she's Asiatic, born in Maryland, now living in Detroit on Holbrook Street. Her husband's name was Muhammad Sharif. And then you got some Gregory in the family. And also in the 1940s in the Detroit area, you have at least 9 people that had the last name Shabazz. Now, Malcolm ain't came in this community yet. Malcolm had not existed. This is 12 years before he even come on the scene. In 1940, you had 9 people with the last name Shabazz. In the 1946 in Detroit, you had 11 people saying that they was Asiatic. Okay, you got, and these are some of the names that were listed. We talked about the Sharif, but then there's this Adam B. It's probably Bayah. Okay, then the calendar and Willie Muhammad in it. Now this is the 1952. These are marriage records of Muslims that got married in the Detroit area. Here's they saying they're Asiatic again. All right. Birthplace, Charlotte, North Carolina. So, you know, he's saying he's Asiatic black, Moor or Muslim, or Nation of Islam member. And his name was Henderson. Here you got an Omar Ali Shabazz, Asiatic black, born in Memphis. Okay. They got married in 1952. And this was his spouse name. And this is his spouse name. And this is an FOI banner that we was able to secure it out of the DC area in the 1930s. This is a plaque that's in Master Wali Muhammad in Detroit, honoring all their pioneers that they were aware of in the 30s. This is really informative, very beautiful, and as you see, it's become a historical site now. And you're going to hear a lot of the stories that from the different believers, Brother Imam, Sister Amina. Matter of fact, she recognizes this brother here as Lionel, one of the early ministers in the Detroit area. This is Minister Lucius B.I. from the pioneers from the Detroit area. This is Willie Muhammad, who was minister, or Willie X in Joliet. This is the Lionel X. Some people say that he was the brother of James Shabazz. This James Shabazz here in the Detroit, Chicago area. Brother Lucius B.I. Malcolm. This is the brother that was the first minister in Atlanta, Georgia. He was also out of Philadelphia. And his name is Brother James X. Then this is Isaiah Kareem. These are some of the early ministers of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. This is the minister that ran Temple number 5 in Ohio. This is the minister that did Atlanta, was doing Atlanta, Georgia. Forgive me not recognizing their names. This is that brother in Temple number 5 as well, once again in Ohio area. This is Minister Sultan. He was the first national spokesman, or the first representative for Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Honorable Elijah Muhammad was in jail. He helped maintain and support the community. He was, matter of fact, he's buried in Arlington Cemetery. He has a crescent on his tombstone. Sultan Muhammad. Matter of fact, a couple of Elijah Muhammad grandchildren and great-grandchildren are named after the Sultan Muhammad. He was taught by Farad Muhammad as well. And you're going to hear the mom and a couple of the sisters talk about their experience. These are Brother Malcolm's brothers, which was ministers and members of the community in the Detroit area. You're going to hear some of the members share their experience with these brothers and the relationships. These are many of the fruit and the brothers out of the Detroit area, which is very biblical in helping with the development and the growth of the nation Islam and the history of Muslims in America. Now, this is a very unique article. This happened, they arrested Elijah Muhammad in 1942 after World War I broke out. What's unique about this letter and information about it, it tells you who they indicted. Former charge were Elijah Muhammad, Len Cohen, Pauline Bahar. Pauline Bahar was that sister that was in that photograph standing by herself with the colorful dress. And then you see what they call it, Allah's Temple of Islam. All right. Now, they were also arrested a few other movement groups. One other I wanted to point out was this James Newby, also known as Father Divine Hassan of the Covered American National Organization. All right. Then they just still list other people that they arrested. Now, here I find is very important is that they also identify this here is there was two early ministers in the Washington D.C. area along with Sultan Muhammad, and this is where you see a David X, also known as David Jones, and there was a David Devon. We interviewed one of the sisters, and she remembered Lisa David Devon, and then Sultan Muhammad. These he was in Milwaukee as well as in around the country supporting while Elijah Muhammad was in jail. Now, this here are some of the pioneers from the Washington, D.C. area when Elijah Muhammad went on the run, left the Detroit and Chicago area, came to D.C. And some of the early pioneers, like this is Isaiah Kareem, became very popular around the country. He helped establish Baltimore area. This here is Brother Elmore. He moved out to Arizona when Elijah Muhammad moved out there. He bought some property out there. This is Brother Charles. Couple of his children, quite a few of his children are members of the community. When Elijah Muhammad got arrested, his wife and them they got arrested for not putting their children to school. This is Minister Sultan. This is brother James Shabazz, the son of Thunder, who did Newark, New Jersey. Brother Benjamin and brother Jake are some of the early pioneers. A lot of these are what they call the field ministers of Elijah Muhammad on the East Coast. Now this brother here is Haji Ishmael Salmon. It's very unique, and according to this document right here, so far he's the first Muslim African American brother to go on Hajj. It was recorded that he made Hajj was in Mecca on October 31st, 1947. Other reports you hear 52, 57, Elijah Muhammad and W.D. Muhammad and them, they went 59. So he's the earliest one. Another unique thing about him I like is that he also used the term al-Islam. Okay, this is in 47. Then he also said that he come from the tribe of Shabazz. But yeah, he was starting something on following the Sunnah. And his name is Haji Ishmael Salmon. And coming back a little bit more focus on Elijah Muhammad and his works in the Detroit area. This here is the first paper, Muhammad Speaks. It wasn't called Muhammad Speaks then. It was really called Islamic News. This was done in 59, pardon me. And then this here is the first Muhammad Speaks when it started in the 60s, 1960. This is the first one. These are your first two early newspapers that was done by Elijah Muhammad. These are some of the early books that told the story. Detroit, and this one that covers Detroit University of Islam and other things that we have achieved. So you start seeing production, print materials start coming out, being produced. And this is the site of Master Wali Muhammad. when they bought the building, this tells you the story about them buying the building, who they bought it from, and then what they did. This was left in there. This stove was left in there, and then this is where they started doing a lot of the baked goods and doing that bean pie, and other baked goods that came from there. This was a building. They had restaurant, apartment buildings, and then they believe they owned this building as well during that period of time. This is Master Wali Muhammad. More closer recently, you see the building which was knocked down. This is an area that's wide open now for new development, for the wide open Muslim mind to come together and work with the Muslim brothers. Some of the Muslims, there's a lot of space, a lot of land that's and space that's available. And Muslims have started doing urban gardens. And that can be a way to help feed the community, generate revenue, and also help do for self. So some of us that are around the other parts of the country, we can help people in different locations to get up on their feet. We got to start working together, helping each other achieve these goals. This is Cobo Hall in Detroit. Elijah Muhammad came there many times visiting and giving lectures, as well as Malcolm. This is the area where we had a major impact. Chicago, Detroit, and DC early on helped produce and help grow this community. And I don't want to leave out Milwaukee. These are some of your students, brothers at the restaurant. The sister is going to talk to you a little later. You're going to hear her story about her family at the restaurant. And this is Detroit also produced the first Muslim judge. This is Judge Adam Shakur, who later became a member of our community. He's the first Muslim judge that we are aware of. And I'm coming towards the closing. This is the article that they talked about and pointing out that when Elijah Muhammad was passed, and that they had devised a plan to try to divide the nation of Islam into threes. And Imam Muhammad refused to accept that and made the announcement, that he was the new leader. So we still was under that one leadership, which helped produce less conflict. Man, if you go back statistically and look at the records of the Nation of Islam, you see that there was 104% growth within the first 5 years of Imam Muhammad's leadership. The community grew from 81 places of worship or temples in 75 to 165 masajids in 1980. 5 years, that was super growth. Increased, then the temples, they had a 79% increased growth in 83, from 83 temples to 143 temples. You can see the information on a different level of growth on the community. Now here, there was 26 temples by the time Malcolm passed, was assassinated, okay? Then after the assassination in 1966, it moved from 26 to 41, okay? So you had a 58% growth. So if they took a hit, they also had a growth within them, okay? And then you see from 67, 44, it's stable for a minute, then it started to growth again. But then you see another wave, a steady wave, late 69, and 70, 71, 72, you started seeing growth. And this is right before the time of Imam Muhammad came in. You can see the temple from 69, they had 47, and 75, they had 75, okay? So there was a wave of growth of people that came into the community in those little short years. Then you see the blossom of the growth. And it was not only in the United States, but overseas, in the Caribbean and abroad, elsewhere. There was many different masjids that was established all throughout. Many things Imam Muhammad as well has made contributions in language and concept ideas. Now this year was an opportunity was blessed with a few years ago, be at one of the houses, the original house of Honorable Elijah Muhammad before they built the new one. And this is his granddaughter Halima This is the brother, the doctor and his family that owned the house. And there was a lot of Aleph Muhammad. This is the brother whose wife, the Palestinian, whose wife had made Honorable Elijah Muhammad's hat. Aleph and his mother, Wali Baha, Brother John Ali, the sister from the Fahan, from the school, and the business brother. So that hopefully that gives us a little glimpse of the history and contribution of the Muslims in the Detroit area. If you listen to the part 2, you'll hear the Imam, you'll hear Sister Halima, Sabrine, Brother Lyndon, and others share their history and their experience, not only with Malcolm, but Malcolm's brother and the community and the opportunities that they share. I want to thank y'all for your time, patience, and perseverance. May Allah increase our faith, increase our understanding, increase our gratitude. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
The community under Imam W.D. Muhammad. And when I came into the community, one of the sisters, Sister Adela Shabazz, she took me over to Minister Wilford's house. This was one of my first experiences coming into the Detroit community. Brother Wilford and Sister Ruth, Malcolm's older brother, Brother Wilford, who established the masjid building that we're housed in now. She took me there, and we sat down in the living room, in the dining room, eating watermelon on newspaper. And they spread the newspaper out on the dining room table. And so I'm sitting there, and I see the likeness of Brother Wilford and how him and his brother Malcolm favorite. And so I'm sitting there with Sister Ruth and my wife at the time, and Sister Della Shabazz. She asked me, said, "You know who this is?" And I said, "Yeah, I know who this is. You know, how could I not know this historical figure? You see, because you know history a lot of times doesn't give the great role that Minister Wilford had in establishing the Muslim community here in Detroit on the Linwood site, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad Boulevard site. And you know, we grew to really have a good relationship. And at the time, I was an undergrad at Wayne State University, majoring in Near Eastern Studies. And they were giving us a textbook to read, and it had many of the Detroit pioneers in there: Sister Bernstein Muhammad, Brother John Muhammad, Sister Varna Da, and all of those pioneers which I had met early on in my first years at Masjid Wali Muhammad. But the textbook read, it said that you know, it had many different fabrications in it, you know. And I would tell the professor that, hey, these people, I know these people. And you know, as a young brother, you know, quite naturally, the professor looked at me and kind of disdained, like, you don't know these people. And so I went to Brother Wilford, you know, and I spoke to him about this particular textbook that they were reading in the classroom. And he had read the textbook. He says, "Oh, I'm familiar with this particular book. There's a lot of lies in it." And my first meeting, well, I asked him to come to the class, and he came to the class and spoke maybe 2 hours, and everybody was like spellbound, you know, at the amount of information that he was able to give, you know. And Brother Wilford, he was very smooth orator, you know. He was one of the smoothest orators I've ever heard. And you know, you could see where Malcolm got it from, and his brother Filbert, you know. And this was a unique experience in the Detroit area that I would like to relate, you know. And also Sister Barnada, you know, I met her, and she would always encourage me, you know, "You're gonna be a good one. You're gonna be a good one. You just keep it up." You know, Sister Bernstein, Sister Ruth, Wilford's wife, and Sister Joshua, who was one of the community bakers. You know, it's so much history. You would probably have to have a whole week sequel, brother, you know, to tell all of this great history and the great shoulders that we're standing on. And, you know, I used to always wonder why Allah chose me because it's an honor to be associated with this great history of Islam in Detroit, but ultimately Islam in America. You know, when I tell the immigrant brothers and sisters the great history and the great shoulders that they're standing on and the benefits that they have nowadays because of people who stood up like Sister Clara Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and all of those who were so essential across America, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Milwaukee, the first four communities. And so as you were giving the demographics of the different masajids and different temples at the time, how we grew exponentially because of this message to uplift our people. And in the Masjid Wali Muhammad, we still continue in that vein as far as having a love and a respect and the upliftment of our people. So we never have dropped the ball. And we're still urging others to come aboard and keep this good fight. You know, if it's just 10 of us left, we'll be fighting, inshallah. And so, you know, that is so important. And I could go on, but I know you have a lot of different people with a lot of different experiences of this great community. And, you know, so I'm appreciative. And, you know, I love this community. This community gave me my start. This community saved my life, you know? And so I'm just optimistic about the future. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he relieves this pandemic and we can hit the ground running again. And I know we would appreciate getting back into our masajid. I know I would. You know, being able to get this work going, right? This is just passing the baton. As a brother asked me the other night, I'm just like the imam that came before me, the imam that came before him, right? So I'm on post till I'm properly relieved, right? So this is what we have, what, you know, this is the mantra that we have to do as Imam Muhammad encouraged us. You know, we may not see the end of our fruitful works, but we are all in a race towards all that's good. And so we have to understand that Allah nothing happens without Allah's permission. And so we proceed in that way, you know, and whatever door Allah opens, we step in it. And I'm looking forward to a positive 2021. This is 2021, isn't it? It seems like 2020. Yeah. And so, you know, with that, brothers and sisters, you know, as we get into this night, I'm anxious to hear from sisters like Sister Amita. My sister Amita, she's a walking testimony of history, right? And Linton Muhammad, you know, they give me the history that I want. You know, I pick out a picture and they put the names to the pictures, you know. And lastly, I'm really saddened by the loss of pioneers, Detroit pioneers, in the last few years that we've had to do their janazas, and dedicated believers who were not able to see the end of where we were going, believers, pioneers that I love, and second and third generation pioneers, and the debt that we owe them, trying to realize something before they leave here. We still have a few, and we have children of the first generation. And Sister Safronia, Brother Osman, and others, Sister Olivia, you know, they were children, Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They were right there, right? And, you know, Sister Amita could give you more information on that. Brother Linton could give you more information on those pioneers that are still here, right? And they are with us, they support us wholeheartedly, you know, and our young people can learn something from them. And don't disassociate or disconnect yourself from the elders in the community, right? So it's so important. Now, I'm gonna also, Sister Sabrine, another young person who has a host of talents and a large and a commitment, born and raised in the community, which she's so important as far as giving history, Detroit history, blogging, recording of pioneers, you know, and things like that. And also, Brother Henry Shaheed. I have to mention him. When I interviewed him, he was a brother, pioneer brother, shot 9 times at Eastern Market for selling Muhammad Speaks. And he lived to talk about it. He talked about how the police would harass them, how they would arrest them at 1300 and try to make them drink urine. You know, some of the stories that these brothers went through. A lot of brothers were martyred in the streets of Detroit. As you started off with some of the shootings on Hastings and around the Castle Theater, you know. So we have martyrs that have given their lives for our life, you know. And I get frustrated sometimes with some of our younger people and some of our older people, because it seems like we don't see this great history that we have here in Detroit and all over the country for our community. And so I'm not going to give a kutbah, but I've already given. Should I break the kutbah?
You messing.
You know, because it's an opportunity to serve. You know, it's an opportunity to serve. And, you know, I couldn't find a better community to serve on, right? The first community, right? The first community. So that's it. You know, if I die tomorrow, I'm satisfied I got a chance to lead this community, right? And so, you know, I'm going to leave you with that, and I'm going to start listening now. Shut up and start listening to some of the commentary. I see we have also one of my assistants, brother Munir, is online, and I'm sure, you know, he has something to say also. These are the younger generation that are taking on the next level, right? So we got a few young people. They're not all gone yet. We got a few. Right.
All right. So let's begin. Thank you, Brother Imam.
All right. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum.
Alhamdulillah bil amin. Sister Mina, look like you might be next. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my sister.
Wa alaikum assalam. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We hear you loud and clear and see you good.
Thank you very much. First I must say that thank you for having us on tonight. And if I could just break a minute and say, Assalamu alaikum, Sabrine. I haven't seen her in so long. And it's so good to see her. And email too. Yes, sir. So I was really impressed with your pictures because I recognized Brother Lemuel. He was the imam when I first came to the temple. I was like 7 years old. And it was on Frederick Street. So I saw it. And also, when you were showing the documents and you saw Brother Wali, well, Brother Wali had passed away, but when you said Sister Addie and Sister Essie, Sister Addie was my mom's like best friend when she first came into the temple. And Sister Essie was her daughter. So I grew up with them, you know, with those people. And
that is the Wali Muhammad.
Yes. And I never knew him because he had passed away years before.
Like 1944.
You know, and so now I can put it means a lot more to me, you know, because I knew his wife and I knew his daughter. So yes, sir. So my journey began when I was like 7. My father was Brother Jesse 2X at the time. and my mom was Sister Geneva X, and my father came in on Frederick Street, and his first visit, Malcolm X, was the minister teaching that day. So and so I was just a little girl, and my mom wasn't a big churchgoer, but my dad was. And so I would be following him around all the time, visiting all these different churches. And a sister, oh gosh, now I know her name just as well, but a sister was passing by his barbershop and invited him. And she said, well, if Sister Elodie was her name. And she was like, if you go to the temple with me, I'll go to your church. And so he was like, well, I got a fish here. So maybe that's how it, but he was thinking she's not going to really go, but she really did. She really did. And then he was so impressed with his first visit to the temple, because Sister Ella had also asked my mom. And, you know, back then, the sisters went in one door and the brothers went in another door on Frederick. And so when he got out, my mom was there. So they had made a commitment that night that they were going to be Muslims. They came home and threw all the pork out of the house. And he says they spent most of the night talking about how they could change their lives. So I attended, they had a restaurant too on Russell Street, because that was right around the corner from the temple. And they had a restaurant and he had a barbershop. And when you said Hastings Street, he also worked in a barbershop on Hastings Street. So I would be on Hastings Street sometimes in my life, you know, because our restaurant wasn't that far. So you could walk to Hastings from Russell Street. But anyway, he had a restaurant, but they sold pork in the restaurant. So he shut the restaurant down and he opened up the Shabazz restaurant. And it was on Russell Street. And that was, I can remember that because in 1955 is when I started the University of Islam. And that's when their Shabazz restaurant was flourishing. And I tell people all the time, my mom was a great cook. And I can see Malcolm X walking down Russell, entering my mom's restaurant, because we were getting our building on Linwood. And he was very instrumental in that happening. And he would come to my mom's restaurant every day. He was there for 1 month, and he would come to her restaurant every day and eat dinner. And you could see him dinner time. He would be coming across the window into the restaurant to eat dinner. And so my father always ate dinner with him every night that he was there. And they had a restaurant, and then right next door was his barbershop. And so I started the University of Islam, and at that time, it was at 5401 John C. Lodge. That's where our school was. They moved off of Frederick, and they moved on John C. Lodge. And that's where I attended the University of Islam. And one of those pictures that you showed, I was in it because we were in Chicago, and I was at my 8th grade graduation. And Brother Linton is on here, and his mom is on that same picture because we grew up together. And I have to tell you, my life growing up in the Nation of Islam it's kind of unbelievable now, because it was many moons ago. And I'm so thankful that I started my life as Muslim under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because now Malcolm was gold to me, because I would see him every day, and I'd see him just as not on a rostrum, but eating dinner, and I was serving him. So that was wonderful. But he was a moral man. He was a good guy. He was a good guy, and he dedicated his life to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad until he couldn't do it anymore. And, and it was a lot of stuff going on back by, when he left, but we were saddened, and my mom and dad were saddened because we had a relationship with him, and we would travel all around the United States, wherever the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, that's where we would be. Because my dad was, he was gung-ho FOI. And I was a little girl, so I was right with him. So, I had a chance to visit the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's house when they had the white man's heaven to a black man's hell, the play, and Louis Farrakhan was in the play. And so it's so many things that I could really tell you. A lot of those brothers and sisters, Sister Joshua, her husband, Brother Jace Bell Joshua, Brother Muola Haziz, Brother Wilford, Brother Filbert. I knew Brother Wesley. Those were all Malcolm X's brothers, and they would all come to the restaurant. So everybody who was anybody came to my mom's restaurant. Louis Farrakhan came. And then we moved on Forest Street. We always was upgrading ourselves, So we moved to a better neighborhood, another barbershop and another restaurant right next door to each other. And Sister Lavella Muhammad, who was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's niece, worked in our restaurant. And one day, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came to our restaurant. And we were nervous wrecks, but it was we were just like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And it was still the Shabazz restaurant. It was always the Shabazz restaurant. And when I knew I was going to be here, I was like, I wonder what was the name. I couldn't hardly remember the name of my mom's restaurant before they were Muslims, but it was the Long Star restaurant. So I have to, one of these days, I'm going to write some memoirs. And so I want to remember that. I want to remember that. So, so that journey took me all the way through the University of Islam. I married at a very early age. I was 16 when I got married. I had 5 children. And so my life was taking care of my children mainly, in the early days of, but I still, I came to the masjid when I could. But, if you got 5 children and you're busy taking care of those 5 kids. But, and I was sitting here thinking, I was like, how was I when Wallace came to, in? And I was 30. But I remember him going to the Savior days when there was no I-94. And we had to go out Michigan Avenue all the way to Chicago for Savior's Day. And of course, Malcolm would be there and Wallace would be there. He was just Wallace then, but he was a rock star then because we all knew that his name was on that wall or on the window or on the door. So we knew that something was going to come up. We didn't know what, didn't know when. And so in 75, it was no question. It was no question. I look at him when they show him, and he was like saying that nothing is going to stir the curtains.
That's right. So emotion ain't going to blow against this house.
Nothing is going to make it fall down. And all of these many years later, we're still here. And I was also thinking about, I said I was grateful for growing up in the Nation of Islam because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was getting us ready. He was, I know it in my heart, he was getting us ready for his son. He was getting us ready. He didn't teach us all the stuff that his son came along and gave us. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And Allah, the true Allah, he gave it to us. We spend our times praying or learning how to pray, So, and some of the things I didn't have to worry about trying to learn Arabic when I was growing up, because that wasn't the time. It wasn't the time. So you should see me now struggling to say some of these Arabic prayers. Don't fuss at me, brother. Imam Tawheed. But yeah, so I'm grateful. I'm truly grateful. And I thank Allah for all the young people that still are with us, Sabrina and her husband. All praises is due to Allah for you. When I see both of you, I'm joyful. I am joyful. So I probably could go on and on and on, but anybody else, I know Litton probably has something to say, because I remember when he was born, and I'm just 25, but I still remember. I still remember when he was born. Yep. So
before I let you go, my sister, I'll let you come back, but I got a question. What are some of the, for me, some of the things that Elijah, I can remember that I would say that he gave me was one, the prayer, should I turn myself to thee, O Lord, trying to be upright,
right,
who originated in the earth and not the polytheists. Surely my
yes,
prayer, my life and my death are all for thee, O Lord. Over all the world. No. That is a mantra still to the day.
Yes, we repeat it to this day. We repeat it to this day.
And then with the Imam, Wardi Muhammad, he gave us the language. Like I try to tell some people that with Imam Wardi Muhammad, with mythology, the closest person I could think that taught mythology is what's that boy? Joseph Campbell. That did that PBS story about mythology. He's the closest one I could hear that what Imam taught us. Right. And then as far as metaphysics was Charles Fillmore. The greatest people that I've seen that you could even come close to what the Imam gave us as wisdom and as words and language and freedom.
Yes, yes. And then you can see today where all the stuff that's going on. And I think back to some of the Nation of Islam saying, like the fall of America. And if you can't see it, then you're blind. And
real, ain't it?
And my mom would always tell me, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you're going to find money just in the street. In South America, the money was in the street. They didn't say where it was going to be, but it was just in the street. The wallpaper, we didn't know how it was going to come. I didn't even know if I'd ever see it. But when things come now, I don't get really too upset because Allah is in control. And you just have to sit back and do the best you can to stay here. And when your time comes to go, die as a Muslim. That's what I'm trying to do. So I stay in the house. I'm trying to stay safe because you have to use good judgment. You have to use good judgment. Yep. So yes, sir. So thank you so much for having number one on, because we're number one, and I'm proud because wherever you go and you say you're number one, you get some looks. So I'm like, all praises due to Allah. We're here. We're here.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Yes, sir. Alhamdulillah.
All right. I see the Imam got his hands up, but after the Imam, we're going to ask Brother Linton to come on and say a few words. Yes, sir, Brother Imam.
Unmute.
No, that was applause. That was applause.
Okay.
Right. And I got about 5 more minutes, but this program is being recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah, because I really have to go, and I'm sorry that we couldn't have done it on a night that I didn't have another commitment. But I see all of these beautiful Muslims. I see Medina is on here, and I had an excellent experience with her father, Minister John Muhammad. I sat at his table a couple of times and got some real dollars, and Sister Bernstein, her mother, I worked with her while she was a board member at Masjid Wali Muhammad for years. And so, but I'm going to have to go. And brother, I love you. We will talk. And
to be continued.
I love you all too. You all know it. The ones who I deal with, try to let them feel it. I love them. And we're gonna be all right, inshallah.
Inshallah. Walaikum assalam.
Brother Linton, would you like to share anything? Just unmute your mic. If not, Sister Sabrina, I'll get you this. Okay, look like we got him. Okay. Unmute your mic.
Unmute.
There we go.
All right.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Walaikum
assalam.
assalam.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
All right.
That's good. That's good. Alhamdulillah. Yes. Oh, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I guess I'm the baby of the group. Uh, so I got to go by a lot of good memories, but my story in the community of being called the Nation of Islam began on October 13th, 1959. That was my birthday. My father, Minister Imam Linton Sr., he was, I think he came in Frederick Street, if my memory serves me correct. Okay. Okay. All right. She backed me up. Amita's like my auntie. I always call her auntie because I've been knowing her all my life. And then my mother was in came into Johnson Lodge, I believe. And my father came in 54, and my mother was 1956.
Right.
Now, Imam Tawheed mentioned Brother Henry Shaheed. He was the gentleman that invited my mother and her family to actually my grandparents to the temple at the time. He brought them in the temple, and I guess they were excited because he said, I brought a whole family to the community at that time. And that was my grandfather, Lovett Muhammad, who's deceased, may God be pleased with all of them are gone now. My grandmother, who actually I believe was a lieutenant, MGT lieutenant at one time. Right. My uncle and my mother, all of them came in at the same time. And the funny thing about it is they would always tell stories. You know, my grandfather would say, yeah, boy, I used to come in. We came in, we went and listened to the teaching, and Malcolm was speaking when we came in. As soon as we got home, we went in that refrigerator and we grabbed that pork and we threw it out the window. And they would tell us old stories about some of the people from the masjid or temple back in the day. And my father was actually assistant minister at the time for Minister Wilfred. And then Minister Wilfred sent him to first Saginaw to set up the temple, and then to Toledo, Ohio, where my father stayed as minister for years until the Imam Muhammad came, and he eventually became an Imam, and then we eventually moved back to Detroit. I can say I'm trying to go chronologically, but it's kind of hard. I'm going by memories, but I remember when I came around, we were already on Linwood. Because my mother used to say, we moved to Linwood the year you were born. I said, okay, 1959. So she would say, she would always just tell me that. And I can remember before the parking lot was, at the time, was mostly rocks and things like that. We would play in there. We would play because back in those days, we had school. We were in school till like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we stayed in there a little longer. And so we would have recess. I guess you call it recess. We go out and we play in the yard sometimes and things like that. And I started the University of Islam back in 1963. My old kindergarten class. I still remember all my teachers, Sister Ozetta, Sister Barbara, Sister go along. And I actually graduated from what was called Sister Clara Muhammad Secondary School in 1976. So I actually stayed from 1963 to 1976. And it was a wonderful experience. I talked to some friends of mine who were in the community who doesn't really come around too much anymore. But we always talk about the same core principle that we got from those early days. It just stuck with us, and we're kind of different than most of our people that we come and experience, we come in contact with these days. And it gave us it gave us a different sense of self-worth.
What were some of those core principles?
Oh, well, let's go by the most popular one, do for self. Most of them, all of us were or are entrepreneurs, and do for others as you do for yourself. Minister Philbert Omar, who was a brother of Minister Malcolm, he was like in charge. He was like the minister during my later years in school, or earlier years, from like in the 66, 67 all the way to the early 70s.
Right.
And he will always bring us together every morning before we start our classes. He would give us a talk, and he would say things like, do for self and treat others as you have do unto you, and things like that. But it was a belief, we had that talk that the black man was God, which was different. Of course we know that's not true, but it just put you on it was just a psychological uplift, I guess, so to speak, for us. And we went around and we did what he did. We sold papers. Now, I've always had a little bit of a break, my father was a minister, so it wasn't required. I got a break from selling papers, I thought. But my father just happened to be, no, we're not gonna take advantage. You got to get out there too. So he made us go out there and sell papers. And every Saturday, he would take us to the old Arlen's department store that was on Mount Elliott and the Boulevard, Grand Boulevard. And we would go there and we would sell those papers, and all while through our teenage years, we were just selling papers. We moved to Toledo. We were selling papers every week, and then fish and all that stuff. And then we started opening up restaurants in Toledo, Ohio. And we started working in a restaurant. I was the cook. I learned a lot about business and management, working in the community. So it gave us a lot of good esteem and self-worth, and then we got a kinship of friends that do just for the rest of your life, because we had something in common. I believe her Imam Tahi said that Sister Medina Muhammad, who's the daughter of Sister Bernstein Muhammad, was on here. And let me tell you, we go back way back in her and her brother Noor and Abdul and Rob Muhammad, all the children of Minister John Muhammad, Sister Bernstein. I remember when they had their restaurant right next door to the masjid, or the temple at the time, and we used to go in there, and they had the beautiful lamb dinners, and we had beef burgers. We didn't call it hamburgers, beef burgers back then. Just a lot of memories, the friendship that you just carry with you to this day. We have a relationship now. We call each other from time to time, support each other's business from time to time, and we kind of, help each other out. So those type of things that came out of it's just a wonderful thing. And of course, Sister Mita's my auntie. but we do not agree on banana pudding. I love banana pudding. Her mother used to make the best banana pudding I ever tasted, but she says she don't like it. But that's something we agree to disagree about. And basically, that's a lot of my memories. So any questions, whatever, I'm here.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Sister Sabrine.
Yes, assalamu alaikum, everyone. So happy to be here, and thank you, Brother Amir, for bringing us together. I don't know, Brother Amir, is there a possible way that I could share my screen, because I have something here that I wanted to show you all. If it's possible, if not, then don't worry about it.
I hope. I know if I did it in the beginning, I should have. Let me see. Can you? Sabrina, I'm not sure. Let me.
Okay.
I'm gonna work on something. Hold on.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm told that if you hover over the 3 dots over her name, you should be able to elevate her as a presenter.
Yes,
co-presenter.
You're totally right. And that's what I'm trying to get myself together on doing, my sister.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I think I messed up my own screen here. Yes, but alhamdulillah, I was blessed to be a part of the community. I'm an 80s baby. So I guess technically, Brother Lynn, I am the baby, at least on this call. Yeah, so I was I guess second generation Muslim. My mother came into Islam and took Shahada at Master Wali Muhammad. It was Master Wali Muhammad at the time. And so I went to Sister Claire Muhammad schools and got married at Master Wali Muhammad. I was a secretary there for 9 years. And so that's my story. Just being there, though, is just speaking with the elders. I was able to learn a lot about our history and how rich it was. And so I kind of, I guess, had a passion for it after. Actually, it's funny because Brother Amir, we went to, I think, Amir, can you share now? Hang on 1 second, let's see. Okay, I think I can. Let's see.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Amir. You have to stop sharing your screen and she'll be able to share.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. So this is what I found. Brother Amir has always been encouraging. Let's see. How can I find this? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So this is on the front page of the Detroit News. It says, hate caught, school probed. Does this look familiar to you all? It says University of Islam, lone classroom held 102 youngsters. It says the state city may close at last. It also states here, the address of the previous one. So I think you did say this, Sister Amita, 5403 John C. Lodge was the previous.
Yes, ma'am. 5401 was the temple. So the John C. Lodge.
Oh, okay. Oh, do I have to make it?
Yeah, go here and make this big.
Oh, make this big. Oh, okay. Here we go. Sorry. There we go. Can you see it now? Better?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That
So
was
this
better,
is,
yeah.
yes. Okay, great. So this is the I just found this in the Detroit News. This is one of the things that Brother Amir has taught me the time that I've known him, and it's just to look at our old newspapers. And so I don't know, I was not sure if this was Masjid Wali Muhammad, this picture, but right here it just shows like this is the proof. And if you look at it, this is the front page of the Detroit News, and this is August 14th, 1959. So we have a significant history, and I was able to look up a few more articles, and we were constantly in the article, and I was looking for like the Nation of Islam. But the funny thing is that if you look up hate caught or Black voodoo caught, You'll get to find a lot of stuff. So anyway, so that I just saw that there and I just wanted to share it with you all. I don't have much to say other than thank you for having me here. And I've been enjoying the stories that you all been telling.
Alhamdulillah. Anyone else you suggest?
Oh yes, if Sister Medina is up to it, she may
Sister
not.
Medina. Sister Sakia Muhammad, you have any thoughts, any comments? Sister Medina, Sister Muhammad, Akil.
Not everybody at one time.
Brother Munir. Najma. Okay, well, then, sister, we're gonna ask y'all a few questions. We can share about some of the benefits, some of the lessons that you'd like to share with us that you think is important that the youth of tomorrow need to know or can benefit from.
Oh, go ahead.
One of the things, I'm another 80s baby. I was born in 1981, came into the community at a young age. But one of the things that I've got benefit from being raised up in this community from Imam Wardi Muhammad was the logical approach to Islam and to always never, I guess, belittle your identity as a Black man or woman, and not having to compromise your Blackness or your heritage in order to practice Islam. And also the stress of following the midway course, because with any religion, you get people who are overly intense. So it was always important to me to kind of hone in on that as I studied, as I practiced. My religion is never to compromise the deen, but never unnecessarily compromise my heritage as well. And then also just being proud of who Allah created me as, the heritage that He chose to bring me up in, and those things are always key, and the understanding and the knowledge that we're all equal, and that just because I was African American, born here, indigenous, an indigenous Muslim, and we have indigenous Muslims from a lot of different communities here in the United States, and that didn't make us, any of us, whether you came from the Nation of Islam or from some of the other communities. There was the Ahmadiyya community, there's the Imam Jamil Amin's community, but none of us were secondary Muslims or second-class Muslims, because it is Allah who created us and made us Muslims, and like no one can take that away from us. And that's one of the main things that really I personally hold dear to my heart.
Alhamdulillah. One thing I see with the youth of today, of the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, is that all of the Muslim groups, Jamil al-Amin, Dar Islam, Imam Wardi Muhammad, Islamic Party, Ahmadiyya, there's no walls, there's no bridges that are dividing. Y'all are all working together and accepting each other as human beings, as Muslim human beings, is what I've seen throughout, versus in the early years, it was that wall of division or wall of divisiveness.
Yeah, I would agree. We have this Facebook group on Facebook. It's called BAM, and it's BAM is Black. Was it? Is it Black American Muslim? So like born American Muslim. And there's lots of groups, different groups in there. Mostly like millennials, but the different Islamic sects, I guess if you say, that are there. And we actually discussed those things like, Imam Wardi Muhammad community, like they would say like, we thought that they were arrogant or whatever. They might say like, this community, they thought that they were this and this and that. And we all were able to actually have that discussion together without kind of like, making each other upset. We were able to have that discussion. So I agree with you about that. The other thing with the experience of being, I guess, the heritage of having the Nation of Islam behind us, of us being 80s babies, like you still like, you saw that determination and faith that the elders had. So like, I came in at the end time of like a lot of the pioneers. So I knew Sister Vonadine. I was a little kid. She used to give me a peppermint and tell me to be good and things like that. I knew like the sister in the wheelchair, she gonna give me a peppermint if I go over there. And then we had Sister Joshua, who used to bake for Mrs. Claire Muhammad, and she used to make these really good honey buns and things like that. So we saw the entrepreneurship, we saw the leadership, and so I think that is passed on to us. And I think just as a criticism for the youth, I think also is something that we can embody with our I guess with our generation to kind of bring that back into the fold of our community.
I also joined the BAM group. I just joined it. It says, "Oh, born in the nation," or "born in a Muslim." So I joined the group. Finally, I didn't know you had to be accepted, but anyway, I joined the group, and then I started reading all of these things, and it was just young people. It was just millennials, 80s and 90s and 2000 people, and so I put a post in there. I was like, maybe I'm too old for this group, but they welcomed me. And I've learned so much just reading what the young people have to say. So and it helped me. And some of the Islamic phrases, I had to go to the dictionary to find out. I was like, oh my God, what are they saying? What are they saying? But I enjoy it, and I'm glad they have that camaraderie where they can talk about stuff, because we have to talk and get along with each other.
That's right.
So
Allah says, "Let his tribes and nations not to despise one another, but to get to know one another."
That's right.
And Elijah Muhammad always taught us about brotherhood and the flags and everything. We had that hand going across the world, the globe. And I remember he used to always say, "Look, go get your money out your brother's vest pocket." And I don't have no African American brothers that got money like that. I gotta go to my immigrant brothers that got the money in their vest pockets.
He sure did. He sure did. But we had a lot of entrepreneurs too. And
that's right. He said we have friendships all walks of life, and that came out true.
Right. Man.
And what he say? He said, "I'm not here to clean. I'm not here to teach you your religion. I'm just here to clean you up."
Clean you up. That's right.
That has been. Now, I do say, I wonder, what do y'all see today? Because we was very, very successful economically or physically. We may not have been as successful spiritually as we were physically. But now we've grown to be successful spiritually. We've grown in our spiritual consciousness or our spiritual maturity. How do you all see, how can we best market ourselves, market our ideas? What I've seen around the country and really around the world is that they love us. They love the Nation of Islam. They love the bean pie. They love Malcolm X. They love Muhammad Ali. They love Wardi Muhammad. And in some aspects, we've been the dominant culture. Like you can see the change in what they used to call things mosques. Everything was a mosque. Everything was a mosque. Imam came and said masjid, and now you see the word masjid. Other things that he said, Mom said, Allah didn't give us the Quran for us to be followers of the world, but to be leaders of the world. And he gave us language so that we could follow things to his most logical conclusion. How can, and he called us Bilalians. You know, he moved us from, when I grew up, I knew it was called, we colored coons and everything else. And you call us black, you had to fight. So after Malcolm and Black Panther, everybody came in, okay, black was acceptable. But then Imam Muhammad said, look, we got to start calling ourselves black. We're not a color. We have greater value than that. He tried to look at a personality in our Islamic history and our African history. He came with Bilal and Rabban. He said we should be Bilalians. And some of y'all that was born in the 80s, y'all was born as Bilalians. You know, I remember my son asked me a few years ago, he said, Daddy, what am I? You know, I said, you're African American. He said, no. It took me about 10 minutes to realize, I thought this boy, he was a Bilalian. You know, and a lot of us as adults, we dropped that ball. You know, but it is time for us as a people to call people back to a God consciousness, to take on some of the characteristics of Bilal. Bilal also had a characteristic of not following nobody's, didn't take no bayat with nobody. He had an independent thinking, independent thought, and a relationship. And I see that within us as a people. How do y'all see how we can capture that, market that, and stimulate others?
Well, I would say if you're speaking in reference to building the community and reaching out and increasing, you know, our reach, is basically just that. It's increasing our reach amongst, you know, our people and anybody else who we can reach, and that's, you know, having a targeted message for those who are progressive, those who are in the colleges, the young people in the colleges and in the universities, to those brothers and sisters who are trying to find their way out of the streets, and those hardworking families as well who are just struggling to find a spiritual foundation for themselves and their family. So as a community, we have to find ways to meet them and reach them, and then begin to add value to their lives by educating them and bringing them to Al-Islam, bringing them to the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also the pride that was instilled in us, starting with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Actually, I guess you can say before, starting with Farad Muhammad and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Imam Radi Muhammad, Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz, conveying those messages from, Muhammad Ali, because what we see today that we suffer from is still that identity crisis, or that self-esteem as African-American Black people. And when you tie in the concept that the Quran and Al-Islam teaches of Tawheed, which is the oneness of Allah, and then the pride and the do for self attitude, that hardworking, faith driven approach to success, that community success, not just individual success, but community success, I think that will touch the hearts of the people. But we just have to, on our end, get up and do the work and go out and meet them, shake their hands, hug them, and then give them the message. If we can do that, I think we'll begin to add benefit and increase our communities.
Okay. Anyone else like to share anything? Okay. In closing, is there any closing thoughts anyone like to share, or any ideas or perception that anyone like to impart, or anything that they believe that we may have forgotten or left out? Anything?
Just one thing. See, brother Linton, did you give them the people who are on this meeting along with anyone who will see this. I see Brother Amir is recording it as well. Did you tell them about LJ's classic desserts? Talking about entrepreneurship? Because I had a lemon blueberry pound cake and a couple of birthday cakes, man. It's just off the chain. Done messed up a couple of my diets. So you might want to go ahead and drop that plug.
Okay, all right. I wasn't going to go there, but I will say, thank you for that
commercial.
I would say, growing up, I had a lot of inspiration as far as baking, and it started out well. First by my mother, and when I was little, she used to take me to the temple, mosque, masjid, temple. Well, back then it was called a temple, and I would actually help bake and cook when that bean pie in the oven when I was young, and that kind of stuck with me. And I found out that I really like to do it. And then the sister Joshua used to make those cakes and birthday cakes. She made a few for our family and Sister Mita's family. She would actually come by the house, and her and Mom they were close, and they would cook together dinner and all the baked goods together, bean pies. So I had a lot of inspiration from a lot of people that came from the community. Sister Eunice Shaw used to have baked goods in the trunk of her car. Used to come in. I remember she had. I think I got the name right. I'm not sure, but there were just so many people. The bean cream, ice cream outlets. I don't know if they were really made of beans, but but the ice cream. Oh man, ONC Market we used to have right there across the street from the masjid. They used to they gave me a start actually when I was a young man. They had a grocery store, supermarket, and they let me bake cookies and put it in there. I was like 11, 12 years old at the time, and that's how I really started getting into it. And then as I got older, I got serious, started working with different chefs and things, started understanding flavor concepts and things like that. So I developed a serious goal about starting my own bakery when while I was going through some things with my first wife. I had to come up with some money. But we did that. I had a lot of inspiration, and now I got a business called LJ's Classic Dessert, and we make bean pies, and we feature in a lot of the vegan cakes and a lot of cakes, really, and we're doing pretty good. But a lot of the inspiration came from this community. I have to say that. There's a lot of faces that I remember, but I can't put the names to. So I hate to overlook that some of those people, but Sister Nethi used to make the sesame seed candy. A lot of talented people that came from the at that time the temple, and it just kind of put something in my head as I went older. And I also like. Most people that know me, I get kind of silly sometimes. I like to make people laugh and make people feel good. So that's one of my spirits out. When you bake something, it makes people feel good, So I kind of carry that with me. So my biggest thing is that the inspiration comes from this community, and I had to give that credit to that.
Alhamdulillah. That point. Go ahead, my sis.
Okay, I was just going to interject about the bean pie. I told you that my mom had a restaurant. It was a sister named Sister Annie Islam made the first bean pie in Detroit, Michigan. And I tell people when her husband was Brother Adar Islam. And they lived in Mount Clemens, Michigan. They would bring the bean pies down to my mom's restaurant, maybe 2 probably twice a week. And she would have bean pie, but it had meringue on the top of her bean pie. And when I tell people, so when I see bean pie now, I don't put meringue on it because I don't particularly like meringue, but back in the day, that's how she would bring the bean pie down. She would have meringue on the top of the bean pie. And I saw on Facebook, Sister Medina had made a squash pie. And it reminded me of Sister Islam because that's the first time we had made a butternut squash pie. I didn't like it because I like sweet potato pie, but back in the day, we didn't eat sweet potatoes. So we ate butternut squash. So when he said, it was a lot of entrepreneurism in the Nation of Islam. And if you didn't have a building, you had a car, they would work it out of their home until they got a building. And so it's, and I came from, I don't know why I don't have a restaurant, because it's in my blood, a restaurant. And my daughter does do hair. So she took after my dad as far as the barbering business. But yeah, so I had to interject that.
Very good, very good. And you for today, we got to learn to capture. This is a market that they love.
Yes.
I was in Canada, and the Canadians coming down to Detroit to get a bean pie. And I got to be silent because I think my Philadelphia brothers make the best bean pie. And I know everybody, all regions, everywhere, they got their own bean pie. So we got to have a national and regional bean pie contest. But this is what we got to market. Look at one of the things. Your mom years ago, said shea butter. Try to get us into shea butter. Shea butter wasn't nowhere around. Now you got shea butter everywhere and in everything. The mom gave us the idea, the concept of Amcock, okay, collective buying, large purchasing, but we couldn't get it together. We was acting like the children with Musa in the desert. But now we go to Costco's, Big John, Big Jim, where these other places now with the same idea that was given to us. What helped build the nation and our institution was that bean soup, the bean pies, and the created desserts that we produce. These are the things that we got to come back to in a more professional marketing concept and reach out to everybody. We all support the Quakers. Believe it or not, if we eat grits or we eat wheat, the Quakers got that market. And there's other religious groups to get out markets that are feeding and self-sustaining them. We got to come to the same thing, same idea as a people.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I think one of the things that really that we could take from the past and bring it to the present is what you just said, is just showing how, people can provide for their families and for themselves. I think that is something that really brought a lot of people to the Nation of Islam, because you were able to clean yourself up, you were able to provide, you were given a training program of how to do that. And, in turn, you were able to teach your offspring, and then it went on and on and on. So the other thing is that it might have just been an effect. I was looking at a documentary about the Tulsa bombings, and they were just saying about how integration made a big deal of like how that changed how we supported each other, because once we got integrated, then we started going to other places. So now we got to reverse that. And, not to say that you can't go to other places, but make sure that if you can support, or you look for that person who is providing that service or providing that product that's African-American, you make sure you support them first before you go to support somewhere else.
That's right.
Yes, and the Quran shows you that in the relationship with the bee. Allah said he allowed that bee to build his hives and everywhere, in high mountains and places and trees, in our houses. And then what that bee goes out, he goes out and get that honey. He go get the pollen from every place and bring it back to the hive. So we all got to go out and bring it back home. And we in leadership got to learn to accept that the people come through different doors. I heard one brother tell the story about Yusuf in the Quran, You know, so many of us hear the story about Yusuf in the Quran, you know, being enslaved, being stolen, and the hatred of his brothers and everything. But the brother and being locked up and controlling his sexual urges. But the brother pointed out that that's really a story of a father. If you really hear about the story of Yusuf in the Quran, it's about Yunus, his father, Jacob, telling him, you know, crying for his, pleading for his son, looking for them. They're going back, checking with his father. And then they come back, bridge back together as a family. But brother explained to us when Jacob told his children when he went back to Egypt, don't go back in the same door or the same path, is that he's telling us as parents that all our children are not going to come to the same door. All our people are not going to come to the same door. They can come to different doors, and we got to learn to accept that diversity in those doors. Just like Moses struck the rock and 12 strings came out, there's many different tribes and there are many different doors that we got to learn to accept our diversity and the beauty of our diversity and to encourage and to stimulate. And I do say that I watch a lot of us as Muslims, they may hate us as the nation, but they admire us. They respect our ingenuity, our discipline. I see there is a difference in a Muslim that came through the Nation of Islam and a Muslim that didn't. You know, that Muslim that came to the Nation of Islam seemed like they got a little different discipline, a little more different focus than someone that has not. I also see that, and I tell as my sister said, she struggled with the Arabic. I struggle with the Arabic. I got dysphobia, whatever comes with it. But I like that I got to go read 3 different books and go get the dictionary to get some understanding. That work will give you a season of understanding. Allah is not limited to that China man, that English man, that Arab man. His language and his word goes throughout, and we have to reflect that word in that light. I didn't come here to talk. I really came here to listen to y'all. Anyone else before we come to close? I see we got Linton. Anything else? Najma, Sister Shirley Muhammad, Katrina, Medina, Zakia. Anyone like to share any thoughts or share any of their experience with the Nation of Islam or even with the transition from the Detroit area?
Yeah, if I could say real quick too, a lot of the things that has been inspiring for me and coming from this community is I had for a period left the community for a while. And when I came back, I saw these young people like Sister Sabrine and her husband and some others. And they inspired me. The knowledge that they had of the religion, the true religion of Al-Islam, just the way they carried themselves, it was just inspiring to me. And it made me say, oh, I better get my act together. Because, you know, I kind of grew up in this community. And, you know, for whatever reason, I decided to say, well, I think I'm, you know, I just left for a while, but the heart, you know, Allah wouldn't let me leave. So, you know, when I came back, you know, I mentioned those 2 because they really inspired me to they left, they have a good example, and to see it in younger people. You know, she already took away my baby title, the baby of the group title. So I'm just going to surrender that here. But to see them, they inspire me to actually become a better Muslim. And it was just inspiring to see that and the growth. And you say we kind of lost it a little bit in our business acumen or the way we do business like we did, but the growth in our spiritual life and being closest to Allah, getting closer to Allah, and what we learned from Imam Waridin Muhammad when he came in. Oh man, whew, he actually literally saved lives. He literally saved lives. I can tell you about some stories in Detroit, which I'm not going to go into right now, but he literally saved some lives. And to see the development of younger people that come from his time, his period when he took over, it's inspiring. it's really inspiring to see that. And I just think a lot that I was able to grow into this part of Al-Islam, as well as thankful for the development that I received from the Nation of Islam. And and they threw in a plug for my bean pies, but I got to say too, the website designing too is awesome.
You should put your web page. Give your web page information. Write it down on a piece of paper, man, before we close, so they can see it or be able to give it out. All right. Cause I still challenge you about them bean pie, man. But I hear y'all Detroiters, man.
You'll lose.
just one real quick, another plug. That was a low key, Brother Linton, low key gave y'all a plug for Hanifa Consulting. My wife does she does a great job of creating doing web pages, and she has some other talents that she offered consulting for different nonprofit organizations as well, getting them set up. So that entrepreneurial spirit is still alive in our community, alhamdulillah. So inshallah, we will continue to build upon what we've learned from our pioneers and continue to move that forward, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, well, I got a plug.
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
Brother Munir, does she work outside of the Michigan area? I want her name and number. I know my son in Georgia is possibly looking to have a website built for a business he is about to launch. So I want to say that. And I also want to say that the bean pie definitely has diversified. And as far as I'm concerned, in the DC area, I'm the one. Even though I don't bake, I don't bake anymore. But I just wanted to say that about me. But Brother Munir, definitely. Hanifa Consulting, I wrote it down. What's the website? or the telephone number.
Mashallah. I do want to, mashallah, Najma. I do want to say that one of the projects, Sabrina, that y'all are working on with the masjid, the historical project, because I see that the masjid has been designated as a historical site, and I know that there's a team that's been working on maintaining and developing the history of Detroit.
Yes, so yeah, there was a team. COVID has stopped a lot of things. So but we were in the process of still I guess getting a lot of the items and collecting a lot of histories and oral histories we were primarily working on. I have been working with an organization, Dream Detroit, who has been, they got a grant to do a oral history program. So they have Sister Amita is one who has participated. I'm not sure. I think Brother Linton, if not sure, but they are collecting some of the oral histories in the city, especially with African Americans, mostly African Americans in the city. So that's one of the things that we're, focusing on, is like getting those stories before they leave us, because we've had quite a few during 2020 and 2019 that, a lot of our elders have left and they took their stories with them. But alhamdulillah, I can put it in the chat box, and Sister Najma, I can put my information there too. But we produced a documentary. It's on YouTube. It's free that you can watch it. And it's about some of the pioneers that were in Detroit. They tell their stories, and 2 of the pioneers have passed. So that's a good documentary to check out. Inspired by Brother Amir, because he told me to do that when I went to his museum.
Mashallah. Because our mom told us we got to do these things. We got to tell our story. If we don't, who will? They're going to tell it different than what we are. It is, everybody has to. It is our obligation, it is our duty. Like inshallah, tomorrow I have some interviews that we're gonna play that I've done when I've traveled around the country. And I lost it. Didn't have the sound. Brother just be able to pull back the sound after years. And these are people like after 40s when Elijah Muhammad got arrested in DC in the 40s. Sister said that she took over as a treasure. She talked about her experience. Now the sister talked about how she was in the temple that they bombed Pearl Harbor. Elijah Muhammad was teaching that day. You know, so it is important. And Sister Halima, y'all go get Munir, y'all go get a mic, go and record each one of these people, tell their story, and go get paid to tell their story. They pay us to tell our historical story, those oral histories. This is a service that the masjid can provide and generate income. You know, we got to be creative with that dollar, that creative economy. And history is that creativeness. You know, we own Malcolm, we own Muhammad Ali, we own Elijah Muhammad, we own W.D. Muhammad. These are our stories. We own that bean pie. You know, so and the bean soup and other things that we have to market and hold as a heritage.
Definitely. Inshallah, we do plan on getting a few interviews. I know Sabrine did a couple of interviews with some of the pioneers a couple of years back. But we are looking to get on a consistent schedule of just documenting everyone's story with the video. Of course, due to the pandemic, it's kind of put on hold, but even if we don't do anything but document and store it until we find a good platform to display them, but that is a plan for our just to document our history.
And Zoom may be a vehicle for y'all.
Yeah.
You know, while we're all home and quiet, you know, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, to document their story, to get make it convenient for them. Yeah. And some high-tech person come in and clean it up and get it straight. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
All right. Anyone else before we go? Our last call.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't planning on speaking. I'm gonna turn on my video. I'm not here to be fancy. I'm just here to be present, but hold on. I think my video is coming on. Okay. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Brother Amir is one of the greatest living historians. We're talking about recording people, and I just wanna always say thanks to him. I am a PhD student. I'm finishing now in Islamic Studies at UNC Chapel Hill. And I visited Brother Amir's museum a few years ago, and he showed me what it's like to be a true historian. So I always try to follow him. I just wanted to introduce myself as someone who has access to those money and resources. I was just recently hired at the Catholic University in Detroit, Detroit Mercy, if y'all are familiar with it. So right now, I'm still with my family because I can't see anybody in Detroit. So my family's in New York. So I do a lot of work on Islamic history in New York City, and I do tours of Islamic history in New York City, colonial history, and also history in Harlem. But I just wanted to introduce myself because I see myself as an insurgent scholar, which means universities like to keep a lot of the resources for themselves, when really universities are supposed to be resources for the community, to serve the community, and make sure that education is something that is done collaboratively. So I'm not in Detroit yet, but I just wanted to put myself out there, and I'll put my email in the chat. But once I get to Detroit this fall, I would like to make those resources available so that you can make use of them as you see fit to be able to preserve these histories, because individuals shouldn't have to be responsible for these things when these universities have thousands and thousands of dollars and technology and internet space and library space for these things. I know Michigan, Ann Arbor is already holding a lot of this stuff. Most of it is from the Arab Muslim community, but they have dedicated for all of eternity for these papers to be preserved in beautiful air-conditioned storage. And so this is the type of thing that should be demanded of a university like mine or others. And so I just wanted to introduce myself, because once I get to Detroit, I'm going to hit the ground running, and I want to make these resources available. So I just wanted to introduce myself.